And we are live. Welcome back to another TinySeed application live Q&A. I'm Rob Walling. I am the co-founder of MicroConf and TinySeed. And we are back for our, I should know this number, seventh TinySeed live Q&A. We've done quite a few of these, and they're always so much fun. And it's because of you, our listeners and viewers who chime in with questions about how we work, how we operate, and questions about your startup and whether it makes sense to apply. I want to call out for questions. If you have them, you can post them in the chat wherever you're watching them, wherever you're watching this. So whether that's YouTube or LinkedIn or what have you. And with that, I'd like to bring on my two co-hosts, Alex and Tracy. Alex,
hey there.
You want to say hi, introduce yourself, tell folks what you do here at TinySeed?
Absolutely. I am the program director of the TinySeed Accelerator program. So if you end up joining us, you'll be working with me a lot. And I am super excited to join you all today and do one of my favorite activities, which is talk about TinySeed.
This is so fun. Good energy. Tracy.
It really is a good time.
1 hour of dancing.
Who are you, Tracy, and what do you do here at TinySeed?
I'm the head of product. I'm so excited to do this again. Rob, I think this is I think you said 7th or something like that. It's like the 17th because we just I don't know, it feels like
is it really?
Probably a lot higher because it is twice a year. Yeah, so there's a lot of them we do. 7th year, which is pretty awesome.
Very nice. And we are super excited for our fall 2025 batch. Just to give folks an idea, we are raising, it's called Fund 3, but it's actually, I guess, our 4th fund, right? Because we have a MIA fund. And that'll put us to about $57 million under management total. Yeah, we've invested in 204 startups, all B2B SaaS to date. And this gives us more dry powder as we close this fund to invest in another, 100, 150 over the next 3 years. So it's
super exciting.
Yep. It's amazing. So with that, I want to pass it off to Alex as we wait for questions to roll in, and he can review some aspects of the program.
Yeah. So a few things to note as you are applying. Similar to if you followed along our call back in the spring, this batch will be running pretty similar to the spring batch. So what does that mean? We are going to be one global batch. So both the EMEA region and the Americas region will all be together. This is something we changed last batch, and it went really well having the regions together, being able to cooperate and knowledge share more. So we're going to keep that rolling. We accept applications from any country. This is a question that comes up all the time. The only ask we have is that you be incorporated as a U.S. Delaware C Corp, or really any U.S. C Corp. Delaware is usually the go-to. If you are not currently incorporated like that, maybe you're in a different country, or you're not even incorporated yet, no problem. No need to do anything right now. Don't stress. Go ahead and apply. If you end up joining TinySeed, we'll take care of that then, and it's a pretty straightforward process. Companies do it every batch. Pretty normal. Other things to note is we hold all of our playbook and mentor calls. So these are batch-wide calls that we have every other week. We hold them at 11 a.m. U.S. Eastern time, and that is also 4 p.m. London. So it's a time that we found works well for almost most of the majority of time zones that people join. The only one that's a little bit out of there is like people who are in Australia or New Zealand. But don't worry, we also have everything recorded if you can join. You can't join. And then finally, the last thing I want to hit on is something I'm super excited to share publicly today. That is that this batch's kickoff retreat will be in Cancun. And not only will it be in Cancun, it will be in conjunction with our annual community event, TinyFest. So there's a lot to share there. And I want to go ahead and hand it off to Tracy to talk a little bit about that.
I get to talk about the best part. Well, that's not true. There's a lot of best parts, but TinyFest is near and dear to my heart. This is going to be the 3rd year that we're running our internal exclusive to TinySeed founder conference. So not open to the public. This is only founders, mentors, and LPs within TinySeed. This also includes the founders that are in Institute program. The Institute being our brand new coaching system for 1 million plus ARR founders. So they are also TinySeed founders. And so Institute and Accelerator founders will all be joining us in Cancun this December. We'll have a few speakers, but one of the hallmarks of this event is that we do half work, half play. So we start the morning off with our speaker sessions, with talks and table sessions, and then we roll out and do fun activities together. And this is where the conversation continues as we are going through the day. So you can talk about the hard things over the conference room table. You can talk about hard things while you're off on a snorkeling excursion in Cancun. And we find that this is one of the top events for our TinySeed founders, and the founders coming into this batch get to attend as their kickoff retreat.
Yeah, it's a great time. I think I can speak from also that we're already daydreaming of returning to Cancun. This is actually the second year we'll be in Cancun. It was so good that we decided we had to go back. And it's just always a great time catching up with all the founders and making new friends.
Indeed. I can't wait to get back there here just in a couple months from now. Before that, of course, we have MicroConf Europe in Istanbul. If you haven't got your tickets, we're selling out soon. microconf.com/events if you want to take a look at that. It's at the end of this month. Before we dive in to the application process and talk about some important dates, I want to let you know that if you want to hear more about what it's really like to be inside TinySeed, to be a TinySeed founder specifically, I have two things you should check out. Actually, I have three things you should check out. One is TinySeed Tales, which is a podcast series that I do about once a year on the Startups for the Rest of Us feed. And season 5 with Harris Kenny is in the middle right now. I think episode 3, maybe 4 has come out. So you can go to tinyseedtales.com and that will forward you to those episodes, or you can just go to Startups for the Rest of Us in any podcast player. And it's been the past 2-3 weeks that it's been going live on Thursday. And so you can hear Harris's journey over the course of, frankly, we've recorded for a year and we're going to have about 6 episodes. So approximately every 2 months we would record, and it's this really nice longitudinal look at a TinySeed founder's real experience. Second thing I want to call out is we have a coaching call, a strategy call that we've never released anything like this. You can go to tinyseed.com/bonus if you want to check it out. But basically, Harris and I, during one of our recordings, he had a tough problem that we were trying to talk through. And so we just hit record and I coached him just like I do every other TinySeed founder. It just turned into a basic's not the right word, but just kind of a standard consulting call. And producer Ron heard it and was like, man, that's a really cool way. I don't hear you talk like that on the podcast, because it was just Harrison. There's a lot of F-bombs. I will apologize. We bleep them out. But we just really dug into his issues. And so it turned into this thing of like, you know what? Why don't we give this away and let folks hear what it's like to actually have a conversation inside TinySeed? So those are the big two things I wanted to mention. The third thing is on our YouTube channel. Actually, I interviewed Harris, same founder, just a couple weeks ago, and it just went live on Sunday. If you go to microconf.com/YouTube, look for the most recent video. You can see Harris talking about where he was at when it started, when TinySeed started, where he's at now, how TinySeed helped him, and even the things of the expectations, right? What he expected, what he didn't expect. It's just kind of a nice little walk down memory lane. And if you want to hear more from a founder about what it's like, those are 3 resources for you. So Alex, before we dive into questions, you want to talk about our 3 stages of our application process?
Yes, please, and thank you. So like Rob said, there is 3 stages to the TinySeed application process. And if you're applying, I just ask that make a note of the dates of each of these stages so that you can make sure you're available. Some of these are an interview. So we want to make sure you're available to chat with us if you end up moving forward. So here are the 3 stages. The first is where we're at right now. It's the initial application. That's where you fill it out at tinyseed.com/apply. Applications are going to be open from September 1st to Tuesday, September 9th. So that is this upcoming Tuesday. For those who have applied in the past, you might notice it's slightly different dates. So just keep a note of that. It's closing up on Tuesday. Make sure you get those drafts in. It is a pretty straightforward application. We purposely try to keep it short and to the point. So if you know your numbers, it really hopefully shouldn't take you longer than 10 to 15 minutes to fill out. So that's the first stage. Second stage, for those who move forward, is an async interview. We'll be sending some follow-up questions to founders that we think might be a good fit for TinySeed to learn a bit more about your business and dive in a bit further. That stage will be between September 15th and 21st. So those will be the days you'll be able to submit that if you end up moving forward. And then the final stage is an interview call with us, all four of us. So it's a chance to actually chat with us, to talk about your business, to dive in, answer any questions. And yeah, that's basically it. After that, we make decisions really quickly. We really pride ourselves on moving fast this process. So we have decisions pretty quick after that. And then if you end up moving forward, we get you onboarded over the following month and onto the program starting November 1st. And then, yeah, I think those are the big things I wanted to hit. Just a reminder, applications end September 9th. Go to tinyseed.com/apply. And don't worry, it's a simple process. It really shouldn't take more than 15 minutes. So definitely encourage you to just dive in and go ahead and fill one out.
If in doubt, fill it out. Is that what we're saying today, Alex?
That's always our phrase. I never get tired of that one.
we're going to get some questions today, and the answer is going to be if and when in doubt, fill it out. So with that, questions are pouring in. It looks like we have a dozen already. This is great. Keep pasting them into the chat, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, and we're going to dive into our first question. Islam on YouTube asks, do you have a preference for or against regulated sectors? For example, healthcare, legal, etc. Alex McQuade, do you think we have a preference for or against?
I would say no. And I would say that on both sides. We don't have a preference for or against regulated sectors. TinySeed is pretty industry agnostic. So we're going to compare, if you're a SaaS focused on healthcare, we're going to compare you similarly to how we would any other company. Of course, with some industries, there's some benefits and cons. Some industries maybe are more prone to, for example, having enterprise potential, which maybe is your benefit. But every industry has its pros and cons. So at a high level, no, it's not like we're going to say, oh yeah, healthcare is the big winner here. We want that, or we hate healthcare generally.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we've invested across dozens of different verticals and industries,
including healthcare and legal.
Both of those, legal. We have several
government,
founders,
academia, and all kinds of stuff. All right. Islam asks another question. Is there a maximum team size restriction? We're transitioning from an agency to a SaaS provider. Our total team is 8. 4 are dedicated to the SaaS, and our SaaS MRR is around 4K. So I want to be clear, this is not founding team. This is a total team, because we do have opinions about quantity of founders. No maximum team size restriction. We've taken folks that are transitioning from agencies. The biggest thing is if you have an agency, please indicate your SaaS MRR, not your agency revenue. We don't invest in agencies. And so you will need to split that out.
And there's a place to put that in the application. So it'll ask you if you have service revenue. And if you do, it'll add a new box and you can, hit my microphone. It'll add a new box and you can detail out what the split is and what that looks like.
Yep.
And just to follow up on the point you made, Rob, in case this doesn't come up in another question, it might, but on the founding team point, we generally, once you get to the 4 founders is when we start to have some concerns. Not that it's impossible, but generally most TinySeed companies are between 1 and 3 founders. 4, we're going to have questions on why do you need so many founders? We're going to have concerns about, are there too many chefs in the pot? Those types of things. So, like I said, not impossible,
yeah.
but just
Turnkey
a note on that.
One of our portfolios there. Turnkey has 4. Yeah, so we have invested. There is a blog post where it's oh gosh, now I can't remember the name of the blog post. There's a blog post where we detail like what are some of like the red flags or yellow flags that we see in applications. And one of the things we address is the founder side. So if you are a company that has many founders, want to get detailed, read the details about what our thinking is there, go investigate our blog, find that blog post. We will add it to the YouTube, probably the description here. And then and then you can kind of see what we mean when we say like we start getting a little hesitant when we hit 3 to 4
it's a
founders
discussion. It's a discussion.
Yeah.
Yep. And just to put a note on the idea of transitioning from an agency to a SaaS, you're going to have an in-between period where you're kind of trying to do both, right? The idea is that the TinySeed money should allow you to focus on the SaaS. We do not fund founders who continue to run a side business, who continue to run an agency, or who want to kind of indie hack and have a bunch of different SaaS. That's not the point. We've seen it over and over of the value of focus. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't have some transition time. You'll actually hear, if you listen to TinySeed Tales, Harris was running an agency, and I believe he shut it down, but he started the TinySeed program, and it was another month or two as he had to sunset that with clients and get his clients placed. So we do have, we're reasonable people. It's not a hard line, but it is something of, hey, if you want to run an agency and a SaaS, then TinySeed, is not a fit for you. We've seen folks shut down agencies. We've seen them sell them. We've seen them pass them on to partners. We've seen them do a lot of things. The idea is focus. And here's the thing. It's not for us. You own the vast majority of your SaaS company. And if you want it to be successful, we know that focus is the best chance to being successful. So that's why we require that. All right. Martine on YouTube asks, for MRR numbers, do you want gross or net MRR? In other words, reduced by refunds. And I would like net MRR, please. Usually it's mostly the same, but if you have a choice, pick net. Pete on YouTube asks, I got to the final round last year of TinySeed interviews. Rob had a justified objection about the rigidity of our framework. I've taken the feedback and we have full framework flexibility, which we're getting great feedback on. Is it worth applying again? I don't recall this situation, but absolutely. Please apply. Let's do it.
I think that's my favorite situation, where it's like a new application comes in, we tie it to the old application so we can see the history, and we can see that there was a objection that we had, and that is solved in this new application. That's like a huge sign for us. That big good sign. Obviously, you can't guarantee anything, but love to see that. Please reapply.
Yeah, we've had many that we have funded after that, and like Tracy said, there's no guarantees, but definitely worth applying. Azamat on YouTube asks, is your selection affected by AI tools? Do you focus more on AI startups or do you avoid it? Alex McQuade, do we focus more on AI startups or do we avoid it? It's a good one. No, I like this. Yeah. How do you feel?
We don't.
Here's an interesting thing I'll throw out. There are 4 of us, well now 5, I guess, that review and rate, and each of us have our own mental model and our own criteria for this, right? And it's a 1 to 5, 1 to 10 scale or whatever. So collectively we get to an end, but I do think you can answer this probably for the group, because you've seen how it's panned out.
Yeah, we're hesitant. I'd say maybe is the overall thing. And then that's, again, going back, that's not a no, but sometimes what we see is that AI companies have a bit of a flash in the pan type syndrome, where they have rapidly increasing revenue, which looks amazing, but they're also at a high risk to suddenly just crash and lose all that revenue, especially with how quickly the scene is developing. Oftentimes what their value prop is, it's taken over by one of the bigger platforms and they come falling down. So it's, I'd say we look at it more carefully and we dissect it on a case by case basis. Do we think that you have, a long-term trajectory here? And that's one of the big questions we look at for all companies. Do we think that you have a path to become a multi-million, at least 2 to 3 million AR company? So in that sense, I would say AI is no more different than any other company. It's just that we're looking at the unique risks of the AI field.
That's a great answer. And usually we can tell by churn, sometimes, and ARPU, average revenue per account per month. If you're a $12 average revenue per account, your churn's 18% a month, but you've grown to 20K, 0 to 20K in 4 months. It's like, that's danger, like danger. Doesn't mean we won't fund it. We might talk to you. The biggest question will be, how do you get your ARPU up? How do you get your churn down? What are you working on? And then we get to see if we'll make a bet on you that we believe you that you can do it, But then some AI companies apply with, almost zero churn, and they've grown steadily, and the ARPU is $500 per account per month, or $2,000 or whatever. And those are just completely different businesses. So that's the thing. AI makes us a little bit side-eye because there's just a lot of wrappers and a lot of things that, as Alex said, are not going to have long-term staying power because the models themselves, underlying models, are just going to wipe them out, or they'll become commoditized, or they'll be built into a larger product in the long term. But it always depends. So we do neither. We don't focus more and we don't avoid them. We take them on a case-by-case basis and evaluate them as a business based on the fundamentals. So thanks for that question. That's a good one. Griffix25 asks, when is your target date to select the members of the fall 2025 cohort? Alex McQuade.
It will be very shortly after the final interviews wrap up. So final interviews will be done on October 10th. I would expect to have all offers out most likely by a decent chance by that Friday, if not that following Monday or Tuesday. So let's say like the 12th or so. And then that'll give us a few weeks to start to get that batch onboarded and ready for the November 1st start date.
And popping in here, one thing, we'll also have all of the rejection notices up by then. Sometimes we get folks asking, like, email is annoying, and sometimes things fall by the wayside, and they're like, I didn't get a response from you. Check your email, because it's very important to us to have a response to everybody as fast as possible. So we won't ghost you. If it's not a good fit, we will let you know by that date as well, because all of those things will go out at once. And if you haven't heard from us by that date, send us an email, hello@TinySeed, and we can let you know what it was, in case the email got lost within the internet.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Teaker asks on YouTube, having listened to many of your podcasts, you talk with great enthusiasm for product-led growth. Is that your preference, or do you also consider sales-led growth over the investment? And I will pipe in here with, I like product-led growth because that's what I did as a founder. I just am not a good salesperson, or I just never have been. So that may be why you get that feeling. Within TinySeed, I would say it's, what do we think? 75% sales-led, 80% sales-led. It's actually the majority, because for better or worse, my preference doesn't matter. When we see growth, it is 80% of the time it's sales-led. And even if folks are doing a really good job with product-led, adding the ability to add sales onto a product-led company, that's actually what we did at Drip. And we see that with Signwell. There's some of our companies that start as product-led, and when they get into sales-led, it just adds rocket fuel to their growth. So we like both, but probably 80% are sales-led.
We have a strong sales focus. And a lot of our information is in around sales, because there's a lot of stuff to learn, especially if you haven't done sales before. It can be a really intimidating process. So we focus a lot on the process of sales in our education as well. Even if you come in and you are wanting to add in sales and growth to your business.
Yeah. And I believe, Alex, do you remember how many mentors we have in TinySeed? Is it like 57 or something?
No, it's 70 now.
Wow. So we have 70.
Yeah, that's right. Because I remember noting, I was like, whoa, when did that happen?
The bullpen, it is very thick. And I believe the entire, the largest single grouping of subject matter is sales. And it probably 8 to 10 that can talk about sales. And in addition, and then there's founders like, say, Jordan Gall or whatever, who also can do sales. So there's probably 15 plus people, that we can refer you to if you need advice on sales.
And that's by design, because each of those mentors too will have specialties within sales. So if you come to me asking to talk to a mentor, I may send you to a specific sales mentor, depending. Maybe you say, I'm working on enterprise sales. Well, X would be the best mentor. So even within that group, we have a nice range of skills within the world of sales.
Next question from Gianni. On YouTube, I'm in the pre-revenue phase with my startup. It's an AI-powered ecosystem for venture creation and development with advanced context engineering and prompting. Wow, that's a detail. Do you consider pre-revenue projects? Alex, do we consider pre-revenue projects?
So Gianni, we do not usually move forward pre-revenue companies. Our request for companies that we end up minimum to apply would be $500 MRR. I say that, but you are still welcome to apply if you're pre-revenue. Just understand that it's pretty much you won't be moving forward this round type thing. But on the other hand, the reason we say that it's okay to still apply is because what it does is it puts you on our radar. It lets us see where you were at when you were pre-revenue. And then when you hopefully surpass that 500 MRR mark and skyrocket onwards, you come back and you apply, and it lets us kind of see your path, your progress, and gives us a fuller picture of what's happened over the last 6 to 12 months. So feel free to apply. Just know that we won't be moving forward, but it does kind of start getting us on your radar and allows you to apply in the future.
And just to clarify, one of the reasons why we have this minimum is that when you're pre-revenue, the problems that you are facing are things that we do not cover and cannot help with the accelerator. Everything that we have in terms of the education is based with the understanding that you have at least some sort of platform or revenue and you're trying to grow it. And if you're pre-revenue, there's going to be a lot of experimentation and trying different things, and you won't be getting the maximum out of the accelerator year if you are still working on those experimentation projects and unable to take advantage of the education that we're going to take you through. So there's a reason why we love people building things, want to support them, but we have this minimum so that we know that folks that are coming into the accelerator are able to apply the knowledge that we're passing along to them.
We want to be able to help you. That's the thing. If you're pre-revenue and you want help, go check saaslaunchpad.co. It's a course that we produced last year. I mean, we have offerings for pre-revenue folks. It's just TinySeed's not, not one of them. Epeak asks, we had our first customer on a previous business model, but since then we have pivoted. Should we add the date of our first customer on the current model? That's an interesting question. I would say I don't know that it matters that much. This is not some big, we like to get the idea of how long have you been in business. This is kind of the question. How long have you been selling? I'd probably do the new one.
I would say too, there's a field on the application called where it asks, do you have any further explanation about your MRR, any clarifications? And if you're worried about something like that, feel free to just put that in there. Like, hey, I put this date, but FYI, then we launched this new model and that's when I started. So that's a really handy field for these kind of these scenarios where you want to clarify something with us that maybe didn't come across in the other fields.
Yep. All right. Michael asks, should sales pipeline play any role in our revenue story in the application, or should we stay completely focused on closed or won deals? I mean, for MRR, I want signed deals. But isn't there, Alex, I remember seeing pipeline. Do people just throw it in the notes? Because I've seen it in applications. Do we have a special spot for that?
So we do have a section that talks about your pipeline in general, in the sense of like, what does your sales process and pipeline look like as a process? I'm guessing this founder's talking about like, I have some deals like coming down the pipeline, and you're welcome to mention that. But like Rob said, we put most of our weight on deals that are closed, not so much like what you think is going to happen in the future. But yes, we do care a lot about generally what your sales pipeline as a process looks like. What steps do you put in? How do you nurture leads? And how do you eventually get them to that closed process? So that is an important thing to mention in your application.
Jarrett asks, what would you say is the ratio of US to non-US applications or American to non-American applications that move forward? I don't have any idea.
It's because we don't see it when we make the determination who's moves on to the thing. The location doesn't play a part for that.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't
make
a
US C corp. We look at the business. We look at the numbers. We look at the founders. We look like that. It's not a factor. I'm trying to think if it's a factor for me at all where you're based. As long as it's a US C corp, and
I think we get excited when you're outside our normal regions, honestly. Like if you're coming in from a a non-American country in a place that we don't have any founders in, I think we get really excited about the possibility of expanding our network into your region. It's more of a bonus. We have the time zone. We try to like schedule the calls so that everyone can attend, but we try to keep everything as much as possible, like in general, as much as possible, time zone agnostic, so we can work with people all over the world. Very important for us.
Just to give some numbers for the founder in case they're worried about what it is in reality, the last batch was 40% based in the US, 40% roughly in Europe, and 20% in South America, with one founder on a co-founder team being in Australia. So you can see a decent split around there.
Small
I think
batch,
some people
but everybody.
Distribution,
Yeah.
And that's kind of our reach, right? We've looked at like the startups of the rest of us. Reach has kind of spread worldwide. Like the audience in general is worldwide, and that's why we've been remote since day one. We started TinySeed in 2018, so it was pre-COVID, and we looked like geniuses when COVID hit because we're the first remote accelerator. That's what we kept saying, you know.
Like,
and it's like we were already remote. Well, because we have to be, because that's bootstrappers live all over the place, you know, and.
We live all over the place. We
do.
Very rarely work together in person.
Our team is distributed, and there's 11 of us. And I think 2 or 3 live in Toronto, and everybody else is just all over in Europe and the US. Yeah. Yep. All right. Andre on YouTube asks, how do you feel about non-subscription if it's 50% of our revenue? I'm paraphrasing there so I understand the question, but call it out, please. So non-subscription revenue, like one-time revenue, is not as valuable as subscription, is the bottom line. And we think about it both as your ability to grow, but also if you decide to sell at some point, because everybody sells, subscription revenue is just, 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 times more valuable when you do that. And so it's not that we discount non-subscription or one-time revenue, because a lot of companies have it. Just make sure you differentiate, because if you say, hey, I'm at 15K MRR and most or all of that is really kind of one time that has come in every month, like it's not the same as subscription. So just please tell us. Fragment Apps asks, what is your take on a SaaS that is similar to something you've already invested in? Is that a no-go, or can you have 2 competitive companies in your portfolio? Alex McQuade, this has come up before. How do we think about this?
This has come up. So, I mean, it's part of the fact that now TinySeed is at 204 companies. It is at some point literally impossible for us not to, if we were to continue to exist and continue to invest in companies, to completely avoid that overlap. And so what we did is we created basically a policy about this. And so what we won't do is we won't invest in 2 competing companies in the same batch. But beyond that, we have on occasion invested in somewhat, at least companies that are in the same field. Now, of course, there's nuance to that. We take a look at each applicant, and we will determine, maybe if we think this is maybe the industry is too small, and we think this is really going to be it's going to be rough when they're really like overlapping a lot here, then we might not move forward. But it's a case by case basis. It's not a no, and most likely what we'll do is we'll chat with you if we're interested and learn a little bit more and have a discussion. So usually it's not a problem, and for most companies there's enough space in their field or enough differentiation to where we feel like it's a healthy mix.
There can be multiple winners, within each field. Mm-hmm.
Do we think there can be multiple winners is really the question in this space. And if it's tiny, then we have to, if it's a tiny space, we have to make that call. Everything, as you can hear, as you ask questions, a lot of it's like, it depends case by case. I mean, we're just, a handful of humans making the best decisions we can. There's no automated AI criteria. If you do this, then you get in. If you don't, then you don't. Like, it's not like that, right? It's like we're all making the best judgment calls we can based on past experience. JP asks on LinkedIn, do you still aim for the startup to incorporate as a Delaware C corp, excuse me, or is a European entity okay, such as a Dutch BV? We need Delaware C corps, and we used to do LLCs and UK limiteds and other types, and it was tough. It was a lot of cost. It was a lot of effort. We now understand in retrospect why No other fund or accelerator or venture fund does that and invests
Like
across
six
multiple
figures of lawyer
of
fees.
legal.
Yeah,
It was
it's hard.
complicated. And the
Yeah,
reporting and the taxes, everything gets complicated. So
yeah.
I would love to be able to invest. I mean, the original vision was let's just invest in all the entities, but it at a certain point becomes pretty burdensome.
We want to survive so we can invest in more companies, and so this is kind of the balance we have to hit at this point. That said,
Not-
if you are Alex, you're probably going to say what I was about to say, which is if you're
We're thinking the same thing.
yeah, if you're an entity other than a Delaware C corp, apply anyways. We have like a lot of folks apply with a different entity, and they'll get the offer from us, and then they will we'll help them with like our resources to reincorporate. So we have folks that can give you information and kind of walk you through this process with your own legal, like your own team there. We're not going to do it for you, but we have resources available for folks to help folks go through this transition because it's something that we do with every batch. So no need to reincorporate before applying.
Yeah, this is super common. And on top of that, the nice thing is that the US Delaware C Corp is kind of the gold standard of US C Corps. Is extremely common. There are so many resources and services aimed at helping people through this process that it's pretty streamlined, and it's not that big of an undertaking.
Next question comes from Andres on YouTube. I live in the US, but my market is in South America since I'm South American, and I started the SaaS while living there almost 4 years ago. Is this a potential problem, Alex McQuade?
Absolutely not. Again, we'll ask that you be incorporated as a US C Corp, but in terms of your market, not an issue at all. In fact, we have companies in our most recent batch that focus on the Latin American market. We have companies in previous batches that have been regionally focused. It's not an issio at all in terms of who you're focusing on.
Yeah, one that comes to mind is Maui. I'm going to give them a shout out because they're awesome.
mawi.io. You can go to tinyseed.com/portfolio and we show, I think is it the locations
of the
I believe
founders? It's the location of the founders and the countries, because there's a lot of founders also on multi-founder teams that live in different countries. So I want to call that out.
Yep. Marius asks, this will be a quick answer for this one. If I'm pre-revenue building the product, would that disqualify me or represent a disadvantage? What would help raise a chance of my application? So as Alex said earlier, we don't fund pre-revenue. You are welcome and in fact encouraged to apply, but it would effectively disqualify. We have not funded a pre-revenue company since the first batch. And this is, what is this batch, 16 or 17 or something? So just to give you an idea, we talked about it a little earlier of why that's the case. Andre asks, are you okay with a founding team where everybody is part-time with the startup, but willing to go full-time once we have the investment? Alex, what do you think?
Yep, absolutely. And that happens. It's decently common where either a solo founder or a multi-founder team, nobody is full-time yet. You haven't gotten to the point where you have enough revenue to support full-time. And that is one of the reasons the funding exists, and one of the common uses is to allow you to do that. So totally fine that you're part-time now. I think Rob mentioned it earlier. If we ended up moving forward, the expectation would be for at least one founder to go full-time, but it might be a good idea, depending on the company, for more than one if you have 2 or 3 founders to go.
Next question is from Griffix25. Our software revenue includes subscriptions and one-time project fees. Should recurring project revenue from repeat customers count toward MRR, or do you want that to remain just subscription revenue? Separate. I want subscription software revenue, subscription SaaS revenue as the MRR. Sometimes folks have subscription consulting retainer revenue. Well, they pay us $2,000 a month and we maintain this and that, and we spend 10, 20, 30 hours doing some. That is, I actually don't want that in your SaaS MRR. You can just call that out in clarifications. And then one-time projects that you are, hey, we got hired to build this thing or to do a migration or to do, that is even a third category. And we value these differently, right? MRR, SaaS MRR, and the entire market values them differently. Like acquirers do, any subsequent investor will value them differently. MRR of SaaS is king and queen, and MRR from, or subscription revenue from consulting is valued less, but it's still something, and it certainly helps in the early days. And then one-time fees, a bunch of our portfolio companies have either setup fees or one-time migration, that kind of thing, and it's totally valid. It just, we want to get a clear picture of the business, and so we do need those separated out. Thanks for that question. ePeak asks, we have money as a safe. Converting to the TinySeed terms is no problem. Is it still a red flag? What do you think? I have my answer.
Yeah. Alex, go ahead.
I guess it depends on the terms. We don't have the terms, but if converting to the TinySeed terms is no problem, that's usually one of our concerns. And then also if we'd have to see the terms. I think there's a question in the application laying out what it looks like. So it's one of those it depends questions, but it's not a red flag in itself to have prior funding or to have a safe specifically, as long as everything is ship shape and not abnormal.
Yeah, sometimes we run into problems where the prior investors don't want to convert at our valuation, or they don't want like our terms or whatever, and that kind of is on you. It's kind of like we can't control that, is really the element of it. The other thing that can sometimes be an issue is if your safe is going to convert at our valuation and suddenly your safe investors own a huge chunk of your company. We want the founders, after our funding and any prior funding, I want the founders to own, 80% would be great. 70% is probably my minimum where I start to get nervous. And as you get below that, like if the founders own 50% of the company at this early stage, that is a problem. Because if you want to raise any subsequent funding, there's a bunch of reasons. I won't go into it here. We've talked about them in the past, but that is probably the one thing I'm thinking about. And so if you've raised small check, 25, 50, 100 grand, and it's going to convert to a few percent of your cap table, I usually don't see that being an issue. Andre asks, I know you don't invest in companies with more than 4 founders. I would say we haven't to date. It certainly is a discouraging signal to me. I know you don't invest in companies with more than 4 founders, but what is the percentage you take in companies with multiple founders, but most of the work is put in by 1 or 2? And there's a clarification of if 10 to 12% is the norm that you take, which it is, do you take more if you have 4 founders and the work is put in by 1 or 2? No. Our range is 10 to 12%, and we invest usually 120 to 250,000 US. The number of founders does not really impact how much our terms are our terms. I think that's it. You guys feel like I understood that and answered it well?
I was thinking that too. Yeah, I think it might be a discussion point if in terms of what equity the other founders have if they're not putting in the work. That might be something.
Yeah, that's the thing. Hopefully on your end. Yeah. That's a good point. If there are 4 founders, 2 are doing most of the work, and you tell us that, and then you're like, and we split the equity evenly. We each have 25%. We're going to be like, that's not going to work out. We've seen this not work out over and over and over. So that would be a problem. So it's more of your cap table. And we've had that conversation with folks before where we feel like there's been, let's say, 3 or 4 founders. Everybody has an equal share, and 1 or 2 have stepped away to go get a full-time job, and they're no longer working there. And we will say, you know what? That's not cool for these 2 founders to own 50% and not be working on it. Kind of like if we're to fund you, they need to give some equity back to you guys, the founders who are working on it. That's just how it should go. If you have 4-year vesting in place, which you should, that usually takes care of this. But that's where it is. Cap tables are tricky, and you don't want people not working in the business to own too much of your company. Hugo from YouTube asks, from the application form, I got the impression that TinySeed focuses on B2B with monthly tickets in the hundreds. Are B2G, which is B2 government companies with higher tickets, also in your thesis? Absolutely. Yeah, we have funded companies with annual contract values of $250,000 or more that sign 2 and 3 year deals. Some of those sell to large, companies, some sell to government. As long as you are B to something that's not C, no B to C, and B to prosumers makes us wary. Although we've invested in a few of those, and that's all always due to low price points, high churn, high price sensitivity. But B to almost everything else, I think we've invested in, as long as it's not B to a two-sided marketplace. Am I right? B to G is good. Yeah.
Yeah, we've
Yeah,
done government, like you said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, can be sticky when you sell to government.
Naquidin on YouTube asks, I'm working with customers directly. As soon as the product is live, I'm expecting sales from them. If I reach $500 MRR before September 9th, will I be in a position to get funding? It's going to be tight.
I thought, yeah.
It's going to be tight.
Yeah. Put it on your close those people and then submit your application. If you submit your application at 0 and then say they might close by September 9th, it's probably not going to go through. But if you have it closed by your application end date and that's part of your application, it won't go into the no revenue bucket.
Yeah, the wording on this question was interesting. The position to get funding, it pushed me to maybe clarify that 500 is the minimum that we asked to apply, but it's not necessarily the golden ticket to joining TinySeed. TinySeed, we have a limited number of spots per batch, and so because of that, it makes it a competitive process by nature. And so we are choosing the companies that we think at this time best fit the thesis and are most likely to reach the goals that we have in mind. So a 500 MRR company is not impossible. We've done it before, but I will say when you're at that level, it becomes a higher bar to get in. We're going to be looking more closely at what you're doing, and it might be more difficult compared to when you get to several thousand MRR. But still, you should absolutely apply, just to clarify. But there's nuance.
Andres asks, should joining MicroConf Connect be a first step prior to applying to TinySeed if I'm already over 1K of MRR? I would love for you to join MicroConf Connect, but it is not. It is not a requirement.
MicroConf Connect being our private community that we run under the MicroConf brand. TinySeed and MicroConf are the same brands. And it is a $50 a month subscription. It gets you into a community of hundreds of founders. It's a great place to build a founder community of people who are very TinySeed-ish and kind of us, the way that we think. There's a lot of tactics, a lot of information there. You're talking to other founders, people are asking questions. We're starting to run local meetups. That said, we do not check if you're a member of Connect before, like any part of the application, we don't see that at all. Whether you're a part of this other community, it doesn't give you a boost or at all for your application. If you don't make it in, I would encourage you to still join MicroConf Connect because it's a great place to get information, great place to ask questions. It's like TinySeed Lite and can help kind of like, get you ready for the next application. But it's certainly not a requirement for the TinySeed application. It doesn't have any standing, doesn't affect your application whatsoever.
All right. Artem asks, and looks like we have 3 questions left. So if you have a question, pop it in the chat because we have room for more. Ooh, 4. Another one just came through. All right. Artem asks, if I have a possibility to get funding from an angel and I plan to get into TinySeed later, what are the angel's terms that I should avoid? So this is a good question. Honestly, we do fund companies that have taken money, but I prefer to be it is simpler when we are the first money. TinySeed is designed to be an accelerator of early stage. So if you're at 2K MRR up to usually like 30 or 40K MRR, that's kind of our broad range. We funded outside of that range, but that gives you it's a bell curve. I prefer to be the first money in. Just makes it simpler. So if you're usually it's like, if TinySeed applications are 5 months from now and I need money, all right, maybe take some angel. But if you are seriously debating right now between angel and TinySeed, apply, wait the 3 weeks, and maybe let that sit, because we have seen angel investments scuttle deals where we suddenly are unable to fund you. And that, I think, is the nature of this question. The terms we see that have been onerous are when the angels are going to own a huge chunk of your company. I already mentioned that. Another one is, if you're going to do a SAFE or a convertible note, like, have a minimum investment for it to convert. And so maybe make that $250,000, $300,000. This is not legal advice. It's just, ramblings from a guy who's funded 200 and something companies. The idea with the minimum conversion level is that if you have prior funding and you have a SAFE and the cap is 2, 3, 4 million, and we come in lower than that, but we're investing 150,000, it won't convert. And that's by design. That's why that exists. So I would tend to want that in. If you take money from any accelerator, you usually don't want it to trigger your SAFE conversion. There's got to be what are the other terms? Anybody? We're not lawyers. This is just from experience, but like, what else have we seen scuttle deals,
Well, I think there's a lot of, what I was going to say though, is that there's also a benefit to you going with TinySeed first if you're in the scenario where you're comparing it. And that's that we often see, usually almost always see, that if a founder closes the TinySeed deal and then goes on to raise angel or other funding otherwise, your valuation is going to be significantly higher. And the reason is because TinySeed, an angel should not be investing at TinySeed's valuation. TinySeed brings way more to the table than an angel ever, where we bring everything you see on our site, our mentorship, our involvement, our knowledge, our education, the community, all the resources we pour into you. An angel provides money. And so what you'll see is also TinySeed is a value signal too. So you have the brand name, and usually, I forget what, I know A&R's thrown out a number before, but the exact usual increase in valuation we see, but it's a significant increase.
It's often been around 3x, between 2 and 4, sometimes a little higher, meaning we invest and we close the deal, and 2 to 3 months later, we've seen founders raise at 3x our valuation, and that's just a better deal for you. It is a signal. It is a halo effect, we call it, of like, you made it into, something TinySeed that has the acceptance level of Harvard University or something. And so that is a really positive signal. And if you switch the order, you suddenly have great leverage with angels of like, look at these folks. They know what they're doing. Point them to the TinySeed website. Their mentor network is incredible. And I got in. That's basically a lot of credibility for you. Advait asks, I've got 2 products. Both are doing revenue. How do you see that? I see it as, if they're completely disparate and they have nothing to do with each other, we're unlikely to, we're going to want you to focus on one usually, but we have funded some where they're like complementary, or they have something to do with each other. We fund the corporate umbrella that owns both. What we don't want you to do is take money from us for one of them and then have this thing on the side that you're working on. That's not something we're interested in per our focus, right? Focus is a big deal.
Focus on the product that we want you to focus on, the product we invested in. And because the more focus you have, the more growth there will be. We've seen this over and over and over.
Yeah. Splitting your time between 2 products is a recipe for mediocre results. Products.
Yep. There we go. Nat asks, can you expand on your comment about 2-sided marketplaces? Ooh, I knew this would come up. Basically, I don't like them. They're like B2C. They fail. Almost always don't bootstrap a 2-sided marketplace unless you have one of the sides. Now, if you had a 2-sided marketplace with a bunch of traction and you're charging a subscription, and so it's kind of like one side is SaaS and the other side is the demand, or the supply side, and you already have traction, meaning you're already doing thousands, you would need higher. I would not invest at $500 a month. I would almost veto that. You just need more traction because the headwind of growing a 2-sided marketplace is very, very hard. That's all I mean. And if you listen to Startups for the rest of us, you'll know that I basically don't even answer questions about them anymore because so many people want to bootstrap them. And from going from 0 to a successful 2-sided marketplace is triple hard mode. It's 1,000 times harder than doing just a B2B SaaS. Not to say we wouldn't. just to say it's harder. Griffix25. Some AI-based companies are moving to outcome-based or consumption-based pricing. It's not a subscription, but it's not traditional one-time either. How should we account for this? Yeah, that's not uncommon, to be honest. Just call it out in the application, so we know. Advait, my MRR is $487. Should I apply? Sure. If in doubt, fill it out. Go ahead and apply. Andres, how much do you invest in the startup? Does it depend on the valuation and total addressable market? Total addressable market has nothing to do with it. We invest between 120 and usually 250,000 US. We invested in one startup. We put 300,000 in. They were doing 100K MRR, 1.2 million a year, just to give you an idea. So our range is 120 to 250, and it does not have anything to do with the TAM. It does have to do sometimes with your traction, the how much, just the appeal of the whole package. Michael asks, does the investment amount, sorry guys, I'm zipping through these because we
lightning round.
So, yeah, it's basically lightning round. I will pass it to you in a moment. Michael asks, does the investment amount scale with the equity stake? 120 for 10%, 170 for 11, or does it vary by company? It varies by company. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You say, for example, one company might get 120 for 10, while another gets 120 for 12. Yes, it does. It varies by company. Sashin asks, what's the percentage of startups that you have accepted that have already raised angel funding? Anyone? Alex? I don't know that number.
I don't have that number, actually.
If I were to guess.
My gut says
10%?
I was going to say 5 to 10 was my
5
gut.
to 10. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So not a no.
Not uncommon, but look at our terms. Not
uncommon. It happens. Yeah. Oftentimes, if it gets scuttled, it's the prior investors that scuttle it, not us. That's usually the issue, but it's a good question. Tamir asks, I'm reaching out to, and this is our last question for now, which I think is probably a good place to be.
Good.
I'm reaching out to restaurants about my SaaS idea, but the response rate is very low. What are the most effective ways you've seen to validate B2B ideas in industries where owners are extremely busy? That's not really a TinySeed question, is it? I would follow MicroConf on YouTube or get into MicroConf Connect and ask questions like this, because this is exactly the kind of stuff. And SaaS Launchpad, but I don't think I address this question specifically, but this is less of a TinySeed question and more of a, hey, I'm trying to get traction. I'm trying to validate. And we have tons of education. Yeah. Tons of education. Startups for the rest of us is free. YouTube is free. I have 5 books that are $10 each on Kindle, and MicroConf
You're not
Connect.
alone. Like it's not just restaurants. A lot of response rates are low across a lot of different industries, and talking to other founders is probably a great way to bring in information and help you get the answers that you need across those other products that we have to help you out.
Applications are open now. They end September 9th. When in doubt.
Which is a Tuesday. So keep that in mind. We have a bit of a different schedule than we have done in the past. So the end of day on Tuesday, September 9th.
TinySeed.com/apply. Alex, were you going to say something?
If you have any questions, hello@tinyseed.com, and most likely I will be the one answering you. So say hi, send your questions.
Yep. DMs are open on TinySeed on the Twitter and Blue Sky as well. So
best to DM TinySeed, not me personally, because my DMs are a train wreck. People are reaching out to me. Someone's reaching out to me on like Instagram. I don't even really have an Instagram account, and I'm like, I don't respond to DMs there. So if you hit TinySeed up directly, you're just more likely to get a response.
Put it in places where me and Alex can respond to you, and you'll get a response fast.
Yeah. If after this live stream, you're curious to hear what it's like to go through TinySeed from a founder's perspective, I mentioned this before, but make sure you check out the video we dropped on this very YouTube channel on Sunday. So just a few days ago with Harris Kinney from Outbound Sync. You can find a link to that in the subscription. Alex and Tracy, thanks so much for joining me today, and all the listeners and viewers and everybody that posted questions. You're what makes these live streams amazing. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining me.
Yay. Bye, everyone. Thanks.